Good day and welcome to this recording regarding adjustments at the end of the financial year. This short video will deal with adjustments to income and expense accounts and specifically question 8.11 to 8.14. The year-end adjustments that will be discussed: prepaid expenses, expenses payable, income received in advance, and then the last concept, income receivable. In question 8.11, the required part asks us to show the general journal entry for the adjustment and post to the general ledger accounts. I will use the general ledger accounts for explanation purposes and then show you the general journal as well. Given information, unmarked traders insure their assets against losses due to fire. On the 31st of December, this is the end of the financial year, the insurance account has a total of 3,650. This total includes 650 Rand in respect of coverage for 20.2. So this is for the next financial year. It's always a good idea to start with the expense account. So in the insurance account, they tell us that we have a total on the debit side, because that's where we decrease our equity, of 3,650. So now we just need to decide, what do we need to do with this expense account? How do we need to adjust it to get it to represent only the expense incurred for the 20.1 financial year? So if we do have a debit that includes an amount for the next financial year, to get rid of that 650, we will have to credit the expense account, and remember, for every credit we need a corresponding debit entry, and that debit entry will go to an account called prepaid expense. So we took this to our prepaid expense account, and the corresponding credit entry for this debit was in the insurance account. Now we just need to determine this prepaid expense, what type of element will this be? And remember, if we have an adjusting entry in the statement of profit or loss, the other entry will have to be in the statement of financial position. So which item in the statement of financial position will increase on the debit side? That would be an asset account. So a prepaid expense is an asset because it's an economic resource. Remember, you don't have to pay this again. An economic resource under the control of the entity due to a past event. Our general journal entry, we adjust the expense account to decrease it. So that's why we have a credit entry in insurance. We have a debit entry in the corresponding asset. And in our insurance expense account, you will see we started off with the 360, we deducted the 650, so we can have a closing transfer of the 3,000 Rand expense incurred. In question 8.12, they ask us again to do a journal and a ledger. On the 31st of December 20.4, again the end of the financial year, the rent expense account for Thatch traders had a debit total of 4,950. So on the debit side, we're decreasing the equity again for this expense. It was determined that the rent for December 20.4, so still this financial year, had not been paid yet. So we again start with the expense account. So in the rent expense account, on the debit side, we have 4,950 as our total. But now in this case, this total is too low because we still have 1 month worth of rent expense that has not been accounted for yet. So this 4,950 represents the rent expense for only 11 months. So if we want to get to the expense amount per month, That will get us to an amount of 450 Rand per month. So I'm still short one of these rent expense payments for December in this financial year. So to solve this problem in the expense account, I will have to add another 450 Rand on the debit side, and for every debit, I need a corresponding credit. So this is an expense payable, and I got this adjusting entry in the rent expense account. If this is my expense account, the adjustment would have to be in the statement of financial position, and statement of financial position on the credit side will increase as a liability. If you think about this logically, I have not yet paid, so I'm still liable to pay this amount. So the definition of a liability, a current obligation due to an event in the past, this 450 Rand qualifies as a liability. My journal entry, I had to increase the expense account on the debit side with a corresponding credit in the liability. And in my rent expense account, I now have the full 5,400 Rand for the current financial year, the year ended 20.4, which I can include in my profit or loss calculation. In question 8.13, the given information, Era Traders is letting a building at 900 Rand per month. On the 31st of December 20.6, the end of the financial year, rent was received for 13 months. It's always a good idea to start looking at the income or the expense account. And in this case, this income account has got 13 months included on the credit side, 900 Rand per month. So that means we had a total on the credit side for rent income at the end of the year of 900 times the 13, 11,700. Remember they told us that it is 900 Rand per month. Now we have to consider for this income item, is this amount too big or too small? I've got 13 months and my financial year can only be 12 months long. That means that I need to adjust this 11,700 by deducting 900 Rand, deducting on the debit side. For every debit, I need a corresponding credit. So this went to my income received in advance account, and I got this from my rent income. Good, now we need to determine this income received in advance. Is this now classified as an asset or a liability? Which one of the two will increase on the credit side? This will be classified as a liability. Now we have to think about this. The definition of a liability, a current obligation of the entity due to a past event. We are currently obliged to provide this tenant with the service for a 900 Rand in advance received. So can you see that it's not necessarily that you are currently obliged to provide them with money. It can be another economic benefit or resource as well. And this is why income received in advance will be classified as a liability. Once again, my general journal entry, the income item was overstated. So that's why I have a debit entry in the income, corresponding credit in the liability. And in my rent income account, I started off with the 11,700, from which I will deduct the 900 to end up with the amount that I was actually earning. Remember, adjustments is all about the accrual concept. So I want the income earned, not necessarily received. In 8.14, we again deal with income, but now they tell us on the 31st of December 20.7, the end of the financial year, the rent income account of Enzo Traders showed a credit total of 12,100, and it was determined that this 12,100, the rent for 1 month, is still outstanding. So let's start by thinking of the income item. I've got a total on the credit side of 12,100, but this 12,100 is only for 11 months because I still have the rent for 1 month outstanding. So if I want to determine the rent that I was supposed to receive monthly, 12,100 divided by the 11 gives me an amount of 1,100. Now in my income account, I've got a received amount of 12,100, but remember, I want the income earned. So I've earned another 1,100 on the credit side. For every credit, I need a corresponding debit. And this is now income receivable. So this will be taken to my income receivable account. This corresponding entry is in rent income. And now I just need to determine for the income receivable, which type of item will this be classified as? Receivable amounts, current economic resource. A resource gives you a right to receive economic benefits due to an event in the past. So that will be classified as an asset. And I end up on the credit side with the total amount of income earned for the financial year. My general journal entry, I had to adjust my income item by increasing it on the credit side, resulting in a corresponding debit entry in the asset. So for these income and expense adjustments, try to start by thinking of how to adjust either the income or the expense. Do I need to increase it or decrease it? And that will determine your adjusting other entry. I hope that you found this informative and look forward to seeing you soon.